to the president's enemies. All this comes after reports that Trump, of course, also tried to fire Bob Mueller as recently as December. Take it all together. Any one of those things could be an element of the crime of obstruction. But together, a prosecutor, or in our system, a Congress, could find that all of those things are grounds for much more, which is why Trump's own lawyers, we reported last night, thanks to the New York Times, warned him of impeachment over just some of that, and why any process to hold Trump accountable may wind up before, yes, the Supreme Court. Which brings it all full circle, because that is where tonight, at least one justice is not waiting to take a first punch on behalf of that institution, but is instead moving first for judicial independence and clearly against Donald Trump. Those are my thoughts. I'm eager to turn to our panel, where Maya Wiley joins me, former counsel to the mayor of New York City, Mara Gay, a member of the New York Times editorial board, and Malcolm Nance, a terrorism analyst for MSNBC and the author of The Plot to Hack. Through their rulings, they avoid any debates that could seem partisan. But today, it is clear John Roberts has had enough. And speaking as a judge, as a conservative, as an appointee from the same party as Donald Trump, Roberts weighing in, not to add partisan fuel to the fire. His whole career suggests he doesn't believe in that, but rather to use his nonpartisan perch to tell Americans tonight, as they get ready to gather around their holiday meals, that Donald Trump was wrong, dangerously wrong, when he reacted to another federal judge who acted to block Trump's asylum ban by saying this.
Well, you go to the Ninth Circuit and it's a disgrace, and I'm going to put in a major complaint, because you cannot win if you're us a case in the Ninth Circuit. This was an Obama judge, and I'll tell you what, it's not going to happen like this anymore.
This is important. Trump's doing two things right there. First, he is trying to redirect the topic away from his major and quick loss in court in that immigration case, and away from the real reasons for it, to attack somebody else. And we know that. We know that routine from a lot of his political work. But second, this is the legal part. He's falsely suggesting that federal judge ruled against Trump as some sort of partisan, not on the merits of the case. Now, that appears to be false. I can tell you tonight, there's no public evidence, Trump hasn't offered any, to impugn the judge's political approach to the case. And this sounds a lot more like what Trump actually does himself, trying to distort the legal processes of our country to attack his political enemies. And everything I've just said is straightforward. Any objective reporter could say it. Most lawyers would say it. But tonight, let's be clear, it's not just another observer or any lawyer, but the most powerful judge in America, who you see on your screen, a man with a lifetime tenure, which means he can outlast Trump. He also may have the final word on the Mueller probe. And here it is today, Justice John Roberts saying, quote, "We do not have Obama judges or Trump judges, Bush judges or Clinton judges. What we have is an extraordinary group of dedicated judges." And he goes on to say they do their level best to do equal right to those appearing before them. That independent judiciary is something we should all be thankful for. That's a Thanksgiving message, if you've ever heard one, from the Chief Justice. Now, let me tell you something I know from being a lawyer, but you've probably observed from watching plenty of news coverage of the Supreme Court. These justices, regardless of how they rule or who appointed them, they tend to speak quite carefully. They don't pick political fights. But sometimes they do draw a line, especially to defend the independence of the courts against those who would corrode our rule of law, try to bend the justice system from independence towards something, yes, more authoritarian. Now, why is Roberts acting now? I was thinking about this today on this holiday week. Obviously, this isn't the first or the second or the third time that Donald Trump has lashed out at our independent judiciary, nor is it the first time that concerned citizens have asked for our leaders, particularly those in a position like Roberts, to stand up, to rebuke this president, to use their independence, their nonpartisan authority against his corrosive partisanship. So why now? Well, this is a week where it has become undeniable that Donald Trump is not making simply some sort of rhetorical attack with regard to misusing the Justice Department or learning on the job as president. Donald Trump's literally trying to get his domestic opponents indicted. while his lawyers are demanding an end to the probe into his White House, while also installing a staffer as now acting attorney general who has criticized the Mueller probe repeatedly and pushing the campaign to basically oust and potentially prosecute another witness. That's Jim Comey's former deputy. And this is a tweet from one of his lawyers today saying, look, we're seeing a different standard that now applies to the president's enemies. All this comes after reports that Trump, of course, also tried to fire Bob Mueller as recently as December. Take it all together. Any one of those things could be an element of the crime of obstruction. But together, a prosecutor, or in our system, a Congress, could find that all of those things are grounds for much more, which is why Trump's own lawyers, we reported last night, thanks to the New York Times, warned him of impeachment over just some of that, and why any process to hold Trump accountable may wind up before, yes, the Supreme Court. Which brings it all full circle, because that is where tonight, at least one justice is not waiting to take a first punch on behalf of that institution, but is instead moving first for judicial independence and clearly against Donald Trump. Those are my thoughts. I'm eager to turn to our panel, where Maya Wiley joins me, former counsel to the mayor of New York City, Mara Gay, a member of the New York Times editorial board, and Malcolm Nance, a terrorism analyst for MSNBC and the author of The Plot to Hack America, How Putin's Cyber Spies and WikiLeaks Tried to Steal the 2016 Election. Maya, you know how careful John Roberts is. You also know how he happens to be on many legal issues on the more conservative side of jurisprudence. What does it tell you that he's speaking out this way now?
It tells us that Donald Trump has really crossed a line for Justice Roberts. It's not a new line for him, as you said, Ari. I mean, remember, this is the Donald Trump that attacked a federal judge for making a ruling based on his Mexican heritage and suggesting that somehow he was not able to make independent decisions because of his Mexican heritage. So it's certainly far from the first time. I'd say Donald Trump's attack on an independent judiciary are second only to his attacks on the news media. And I'm really wondering what the interview process is looking right now for the White House turkey in terms of how it's going to be pardoned. I expect that there's a long list of questions about its loyalty to Donald Trump.
You know, I hadn't thought about that. And Maya, you often bring ideas we haven't fully processed, original ideas. You think there might be a corrupt approach to the turkey pardon?
I think that Turkey is going to have to demonstrate that it will violate the Constitution in order to save its life.
Yeah, as is sometimes the case these days, I don't know whether to laugh or shed a tear for our republic. Mara Gay, take a listen on the serious side to the prior examples that Maya mentions, that I mentioned as well, that didn't bring this response from Justice Roberts, where Donald Trump goes after judges. Take a look.
Well, it was a political decision made by a judge. I think it's a disgrace. A judge has just blocked our executive order on travel. You don't think this was done by a judge for political reasons, do you? No.
Mara?
You know, it's really dangerous because, listen, I'm extremely grateful that Judge Roberts has come out and said what he said today. I think it's incredibly important. I think that what's disturbing is that, you know, we have one incredibly powerful statement from the Chief Justice, but that has to go up against, time and time again, the President of the United States impugning the court and the nation's institutions. And that creates a narrative over time where a lot of Americans, especially those who are in the president's base, start to just not have faith in our institutions. And that's really where the most damage is done. It's just kind of a gradual chipping away, a chiseling away, really, of faith in institutions. And that's when we're kind of primed to not trust one another. It's when we're primed to see our political opponents as enemies instead of fellow Americans. And I think too, when the president tweeted this afternoon in response to the Chief Justice, it was another disturbing response again on Twitter, surprise, surprise, from the president. And, started talking about, he said, the president essentially said, sorry, Chief Justice, sorry, Roberts, these are Obama justices, as though Barack Obama was an illegitimate president. We've heard that before. Or the millions of Americans who voted for him are illegitimate. It's wrong, it's dangerous, and unfortunately, it continues.
Malcolm, given your expertise both in how other countries do this in ways we usually try to avoid, and obviously that Donald Trump's beefs are very carefully selected. They are not random. They are with the institutions that actually have power. We in the media have some type of influence and power. We try to exercise it responsibly. Judges have a lot of power. They have life tenure in the federal system. And obviously the intelligence community that you were formerly a part of has a type of power and fact-finding that he resents. Take a look at Donald Trump, again, going after some of those institutions that clearly concerns John Roberts tonight.
Should James Comey be locked up?
What he did was criminal. Should he be locked up? Just let somebody make a determination.
I am going to ask my Attorney General to appoint a special prosecutor to look into her crimes.
Comey is a leaker and he's a liar. He is guilty of crimes.
She should be in prison. Special prosecutor, here we come, right?
Malcolm?
What you just saw there is a litany of activities and words designed to fundamentally destroy the foundations of American jurisprudence, American politics, American law enforcement, American intelligence. Donald Trump is the living embodiment of, I'm in a francophone country right now, l'état c'est moi, the state, it's me. And he views himself as the single and sole arbiter of what is constitutional, what is right, and what is American. And that's where we have a danger. Alexander Hamilton wrote in Federalist #1 that there would be a ruler who commences as a demagogue but ends as a tyrant. I think we're at the tyrant point now.
So that's Hamilton and de Gaulle?
Yes, all at the same time.
Now,
Louis
Maya, does that beat the turkey, or does the turkey still? Is this turkey still a stronger metaphor?
Turkey's still in trouble, and I'm sticking with the turkey. I will say James Madison is also the one responsible for drafting the impeachment language in the Constitution, and so we should quote him as well. And he's also one that's very near and dear to the Federalist Society.
Mara, do you have a turkey thought before I bring in a congressman?
No, I just, if I were a turkey, I would not want to be anywhere near President Trump. Actually, wouldn't want to be anywhere near him in general.
Although if you knew the right people, if you're a turkey that knows Kim Kardashian, you're better off under this system. I'm not saying it's a perfect system. Everyone stay with me as we're mixing the light and the dark, not unlike the meat at a Thanksgiving.
Mix the meat, Ari. Mix
in the dark. Everyone stay with me. We're going to bring in a congressman, so I'm going to have to be slightly more formal. Congressman David Cicilline, member of the Judiciary Committee, co-chair of the Democratic Policy and Communications Committee. Congressman, I'm not going to ask you to weigh in on some of our turkey talk, but I will ask you to weigh in unless you want to. But as a member of the Judiciary Committee, just walk us through how unusual it is. Have you ever seen, for example, a Chief Justice do this to a sitting president, stand up in this way? What does that tell you? And what is your committee going to do with all of these issues we just laid out? I don't need to repeat them, that are ripe for oversight in January.
Well, I think it's obviously very unusual. I've never seen anything like this, at least in my memory, and I think it's very significant. I think it demonstrates the grave concern that this Chief Justice has about the president's language and actions, and it's a fundamental misunderstanding of this president who doesn't really respect the independence and integrity of the judiciary. He tries, in the same way he tries to diminish the judiciary, he tries to diminish a free press. These are important institutions that hold elected officials accountable. And I think that we have, as the Chief Justice said, we have to be very thankful right now because our democracy is being really tested. And I think the independent judiciary has been very important to upholding the rule of law and to demonstrate we're a country of laws, not of men, and that no one is above the law. And I think the Chief Justice's statement, I hope, will give some of my Republican colleagues some backbone and allow them to weigh in and condemn these efforts to undermine the independence or integrity of the judiciary.
Well, Congressman, one of the big questions is how other people are going to deal with what has been exposed about this